Looks like we're also recording this meeting. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, I'll just do a real quick intro and then I have another member of my staff joining me. So I'm John Pavsik. I manage the alternative delivery program for MDT. Program's been basically in operation. And I will ask if anybody has their, we have some, yeah, there we go. If you could mute your phones, that'd be great too. Or your yourselves. But anyway, so I've been involved in design build for MDT as a consultant since 2004 when MDT implemented the program. Prior to that, prior to joining MDT about 5 years ago, I had about 38 years of experience working as a consultant. So I come from the private sector and I bring a lot of, I bring what I know of risk and risk management to the alternative delivery program, in which there's quite a bit. Joining me today is Ellen Hinshaw. As you can see on the screen, she actually is one of our design build engineers. I'll show you here in a second our staff. But anyway, I'm glad to do this. We've done presentations in the past for Montana Contractors Association, kind of training webinars. I don't know, we just want to reach out to the contractor community and, basically share what we know and maybe make it you more successful in acquiring projects. This is a little bit different twist today. I've never worked with a focus group like you all, but when Megan and Megan approached me, they said, we really would like to get the word out and figure out how you guys can know about these projects as they come up. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get into I got a little slide presentation. It should go about 30 minutes would be my guess. Let's see. And can you guys see it okay? Megan?
Looks good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we're here. This is my staff, Brandon Graff, Ellen, Clancy Williams, and myself. The outline today, or what we're going to talk about is, I want to talk a little bit about our delivery methods, alternative contracting delivery methods, are how we select projects for alternative delivery, the advertisement and award process, and I think you'll find this pretty interesting. This is where, this could affect you more than the others, but at least we'll give you a kind of a general synopsis or summary of the entire design build program. And then finally, risk and benefits by delivery method. So let's jump right into the alternative contracting delivery. Our program, MDT's overall program, we deliver today, 92% of our projects are delivered design, bid, build. Those are the projects that you have probably been, as DBEs and as subcontractors, have been involved with working for prime contractors. Perhaps you've actually primed in some of these, but I don't know. But essentially right now we're delivering about 8% of our program is being delivered using design build. I mentioned we started in 2004 with the pilot program, and to date we've finished probably over $50 million or 50 projects to date. We do have a CMGC pilot program that is currently underway. We've completed one project, one is under construction and 2 are currently under design. I'll explain a little bit about CMGC, construction manager, general contractor, in a minute. Job order contracting is, you're losing me?
Nope, I can still hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I thought I heard Helen talking in the background there. Anyway, job order contracting is a like IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity program. And then finally, the 5th member of our delivery program is emergency reconstruction. And you guys have heard of Red Lodge. I mean, we're basically delivering emergency reconstruction using design build. The governor, I'd mentioned 8% of our program right now is being delivered alternative delivery. The governor has recently directed us to, in the next 3 years, to increase that up to 20% of our program. So we're going to be seeing a lot more delivery using design build and possibly a couple other delivery methods. And then we currently have Senate Bill 57 is currently in the legislature, and that would allow us to use a program called Construction Manager General Contractor, CMGC, or Progressive Design Build. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. These have not been voted on at the floor of the, they've gone through the Senate. They're currently in the House. We're hoping that we'll have these programs. It'll help us expand our delivery program. To get an understanding of how these programs are contracted, the owner, MDT, under design bid build, basically hires a consultant, or they do an in-house design. We use in-house resources, but essentially we would hire a consultant. That consultant or engineer would prepare a set of plans. They would deliver those plans to MDT. Then the engineer is out of the process, and we put that out to public bidding. This is our standard bidding process, and we hire a general contractor, Dick Anderson, Frontier West, Schillinger. Under design build, it's a slightly different process. We have the owner, us. We hire a design build team. So the design build team is the designer of record plus the general contractor is one team. Typically, the structure is that the general contractor has the bonding power to basically bond a project. So generally speaking, the contractor would be the prime, and they would hire their sub-consultants and subcontractors under their contract. So it's a single contract with MDT. Now, construction manager, general contractor is a little more complicated, and I'll give you a little briefing on what type of projects, but it's more complex projects. We hire a designer, an engineer, then we hire a contractor to assist the engineer during the design phase. And then finally, because of the fact that we only use one contractor, we only have one contractor, we don't do a standard bid opening or public bidding process. We require an independent cost estimator to basically validate the contractor's pricing. If we have a price that we approve, then we would enter into contract with the construction manager, and they would then go ahead and they would build the project. Under progressive design build, it's just a variation of CMGC, and essentially the design builder and the construction manager team up, similar to design build, and they become one entity or one team. So there's advantages, disadvantages. Again, we're not going to get into the details of CMG and progressive design build, but I did want to brief you on that or let you know that it could potentially be coming fairly soon. So by law, we need to go through an alternative delivery selection process. Legislature in the last session indicated that they wanted to make sure that the Transportation Commission validates or approves how we deliver alternative delivery projects. So the project delivery selection method is PDSP is what we call it, project delivery selection. But the selection, as I'd mentioned, the Transportation Commission is used to determine whether the project is delivered design build or design bid build. Now that we decide internally with the different MDT functional managers how if design build is an appropriate process. We conduct a workshop with key stakeholders, and those stakeholders are internal. They might be traffic, they might be the district, bridge, depending on the type of project. We will go through 6 different criteria. We look at each one of these and determine which method, whether it's design build or design bid build, provides an advantage over the other. Risk management, schedule impacts, cost, the complexity of the project, opportunities for contractor innovations, and finally, complexity of coordination. And this last one would apply if we were building on a reservation or a very, very high profile type project. And I'd mentioned we take this to the commission for commission approval before we can partake or proceed with a design build project. and it applies to all alternative delivery projects. The type of design build projects that we've typically used, a picture in the background here is I-90 at it's out of Missoula near Milltown, basically downstream of Milltown. But basically, this is a project where we reconstructed 2 bridges over the I think it's a Clark Fork River.
Yeah.
And so basically, the type of projects that we select are generally major bridge reconstruction and rehab, including lately bridge bundling projects. Ellen is currently managing a 16 bridge project in the Glasgow area, a fairly sizable project in the $40 to $50 million range. Heavy highway construction or reconstruction. Examples might be Stevensville and more recently the Foys Lake Interchange in Kalispell. Rest areas, all of our rest areas are delivered using design build delivery. ADA upgrades, ramp upgrades in some of our urban and rural areas, and then slope stabilization projects. And then finally, safety projects. We've expanded to include barrier rail, cable barrier rail, high tension cable barrier rail projects under our design build delivery. Just a real quick list of different projects that we've delivered. This isn't a comprehensive list, but most of the projects average anywhere between 2 to 3 million up to, I think the most current one is approaching $50 million. So our projects are getting bigger and more complicated as time goes on, and as our folks embrace design build and alternative delivery, they're encouraged basically to consider alternative delivery. And we talked a little bit about CMGC and progressive design build. Those projects, again, should we get this into law, will include complex projects with high budgets, anywhere from $30 to $60 million projects, extensive geotech, right-of-way, and utility impacts. Projects requiring a high level of constructability review. So these are projects where we really want the contractor to be and their subs involved in constructability review for how to deliver the project. How can we deliver quicker, faster, more efficiently? These are things that we look to the contractors to provide us assistance in CMGC and progressive design build. Uncertain cost components. An example doesn't come up, but basically projects that maybe have price escalation pricing where that the recent economy has impacted our ability to really do a good job of estimating costs, and so having a contractor there to help us is vital and helps us out. Projects with heavy environmental concerns and projects with high impact to the traveling public, very political projects, a lot of projects that has a lot of interface with the public. So this is the part where we talk a little bit about the design build advertisement and award. And this is where I think you folks are probably going to be the most interested in. So I think the best way to find out about projects coming up is we have a Q&A forum, and I believe all of you are familiar, but if you're not, if you go to MDT's webpage, you'll go to under doing business, contracting and bidding. Then you'll come up under the contracting and bidding webpage. You'll look for bid letting Q&A forum. And then finally, we will have, I believe it's 300 and 400 series call numbers are generally our alternative delivery projects. So the example you see on screen is the Circle Terry ADA upgrades. We have, actually this is an active project, and you can, when you go to these pages and if you monitor these pages, you can actually take a look at the request for qualifications and their attachments, and it'll give you a really good idea what the scope of the project will be. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we go about selecting or shortlisting firms, design build firms. But the in this particular situation, we have two firms shortlisted. Dowell is an engineer teamed with Riverside, and Century teamed with Staley Engineering. And so I think, and Ellen had reminded me that alternative contracting projects are the 300 or 400 series call numbers. And if you have any questions on how to get to this web page, certainly go ahead and raise your hand and we can help you out. But it should be fairly simple to find. This is a confusing little flow chart that we put together. We had to put it together because we needed to have structure in our design build delivery. This happens to be a very impossible to read figure. I don't intend on going through this, but I can tell you that we're very structured, and in our approach, we have to be to meet federal guidelines and to be able to make sure that we deliver consistently and fairly. But essentially, up front, before we actually select a design builder, we have a fair number of steps: fiscal, request for qualifications, request for proposals, and then award. These are all covered in this. This is not something you need to worry about. It's something that we need to worry about, though. So the elements of the design build selection process are, we typically we will scope a project, we being MDT, we will scope the project, we'll establish the basic parameters of the project. If it's a rest area, we'll say essentially we need 8 restrooms in a facility, X number of parking spaces, traffic control requirements, coordination with Fish, Wildlife and Parks, or environmental requirements. Quite a list of items in there. So if you were able to look at an RFQ or an request for qualifications, you'll see that we go to great length. We also, at times, will hire a consultant to put together a preliminary design. An example of that might be our rest area program. We hire consultants to actually put together a phase 1 effort that would include preparing a preliminary design, permitting the project, or doing the environmental documentation of the project, searching for water, doing preliminary geotech work. And so this effort actually is used when we actually go out to RFP, so that the design build firms are all working with as little risk as possible on what MDT's expectations might be. The process for selecting is a 2-step process. The first step is request for qualifications, and we select, and in this situation, it's purely quality-based selection. There is no price involved here. And I'll talk a little bit about what that RFQ looks like. And then the second step is, once the teams are shortlisted, they are shortlisted by invitation. We shortlist up to 3 firms, sometimes 4, it depends on the project, but we will ask 3 or 4 firms to submit technical proposals, followed by a price proposal. Once we shortlist the firm, I mentioned we do shortlist firms. We'll shortlist 3 and sometimes 4 firms. We have to shortlist at least 2 firms. Otherwise, we cannot proceed with the project, simply because the ability to justify pricing, we lose that ability, and to be able to actually respond to the taxpayers. So again, we rely heavily upon 2 or more firms going after the project. MDT will select what we call a technical review committee. That's a group of anywhere from 5 to 9, maybe sometimes 10 subject matter experts, depending on the type of project. And these folks are, you might have someone from geotech, someone from my staff, someone from hydraulics, bridge, the district, and in all cases, always the engineering project manager or the construction manager from the district. We have a selection committee made up of senior management, usually anywhere from the director on down to district administrators, sit on this selection committee. I'm going to talk a little bit about the best value selection here in a little bit, but essentially we award on best value, not necessarily lowest price. And I have an example of how that might work. And then finally, this is important as because of the effort to do that two-step process, it can be a huge lift for a contractor consultant. We've had projects where consultants, contractors have expended almost $500,000 just to go after the project with no guarantee they get the project. Our stipends generally range from a third to a half of that effort. The stipends are provided to the teams that are not selected, and those stipends are generally distributed. They are distributed to the prime contractor or contract holder, and then it's up to them to enter into an agreement with their subs on how they want to distribute that stipend. The intent of the stipend is to just keep people interested, to keep them going after these projects. Again, because of the amount of effort it takes to actually develop your proposal and your bid price. So let's talk about step one, statement of qualifications. We basically want to know who we're working with, so we ask for a detailed staffing plan. We want to know what kind of project experience, both design build and similar project experience. This is a rest area, and in this case, we want to know the experience of the architect, the engineer, the contractor. Have they done rest areas before? But basically, we want to see their experience. We want a general understanding and approach, a very short version of how they plan on approaching. And we want to make sure that we screen out the folks who really don't know how, what's entailed or how much effort might go into this project and what it takes to deliver it. Finally, we require that you have bonding and insurance. The statement of qualifications, it's a fairly short, easy lift for contractors and their consultants. It's about a 3-week process. And MDT will go ahead and take 2 weeks to evaluate those proposals or the statements of qualifications. Once we get through that, this is where we come up with our short list, and we shortlist the technical proposal, folks to submit a technical proposal. So it varies. Each technical proposal requirement varies according to, again, what's important to the project. But generally speaking, we always have a schedule of delivery. We want to see a P6 or Microsoft project schedule, a critical path schedule. We want to know that they can finish it in the time frame allotted. And a very detailed project approach. And in that project approach, this is the meat and potatoes of their proposal. This is an example of what we might choose. The percentages vary and the contents vary, but typically you can expect a project write-up of tell us every aspect, the geotech, how you're going to approach geotech. We want to hear what the challenges are, what you see the challenges of the project are going to be, and how you're going to respond to those challenges. What's your action plan to address that? In some cases, we might have we're in the middle of a downtown Missoula, we might want to have a coordination strategy. This happens to be an example from another project. I think it was an urban area. Preliminary plans, and this is where a lot of effort goes into the design. The contractor needs to be able to have enough of a set of plans that they can do quantity takeoffs. If it's a dirt project, bridge project, nope, doesn't matter. They need to have enough detail in-house to be able to come up with a lump sum price. And we'll talk a little bit about the bidding on this, but these, generally speaking, these are all design build projects are generally lump sum projects. And then the plans we consider those to be roughly 60% of the design. So again, there's a lot of work that goes into these preliminary plans. And then we want to hear innovations and alternatives. What are you proposing as an innovation? Why should we choose you over somebody else? I won't get into ATCs, but alternative technical concepts is a way for us on very highly complex projects to actually sit down with contractors and engineers in one-on-one situation and vet some of their concepts, their innovations, their strategies, and that way then when they're bidding, then they can assess how much risk they're taking in proposing something that might be a little bit different. I mentioned the projects are awarded on lump sum, not unit price. And so there is a lump sum, it's a single page, and we do this all through Bid Express. Enough said there. And then we have a bid opening and a best value selection. And then finally, well, this is the time frame for that. So the technical proposals, you generally give anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. So 2 to 3 months of effort, some cases maybe more, depending again on the complexity of the project. Those technical proposals are submitted, and then MDT immediately goes into the scoring. Now, when those are submitted, somewhere in here, the contractor, once they have completed plans, they're going to start reaching out and they're going to start doing their quantity takeoffs and their costing. This is where they're going to start talking to their subs and suppliers. So they're going to, while this 3 weeks, so they'll have anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks from the time they start the scoring, and then we give them an additional 2 weeks after. So we will score the proposals, and then we generally provide 2 weeks to price those proposals. So we will basically, once the scores are locked down, then we open bids, and we can go ahead then at that point, providing that the bids are within guidelines, then we can go ahead and make a recommendation for award. So we talked a little bit about best value. Hopefully I'm not putting everybody to sleep here. I love this stuff, but I know it's probably it's a challenge to try to understand the concept. But anyway, we'll try to can show you how best value is determined. So the first thing we need to do to determine our best value calculation, or how we rate the technical proposal in comparison to the price proposal. So we determine what the project goals and challenges are. If it's a very complicated project with lots of right-of-way, lots of utilities, lots of coordination, we'll put more emphasis on the technical approach as opposed to the price approach. Likewise, if we are also schedule motivated, so let's say we need to complete something in fiscal year 24, then we're going to put more weight on the proposal possibly than we would the price. So again, it's a lot of there's a lot of considerations. In the past, we have generally used a 75-25 or a 60-40 split. So what that means is the 75% of the value, or the weighted value, is put on the technical the proposal, the plans, the staffing, and we put more weight on that, recognizing that we're getting better value out of a more well-defined, organized team, and only 25% on the pricing. Now, again, that's typically what we've been using for highly complex projects, bridge projects, rest areas. There's a lot of moving parts to those projects. Whereas an ADA upgrade project, or in the case of our high tension cable barrier, there isn't a lot of, they may be slightly complex, but really the value we put in it is we're more interested in pricing. So in the case of ADA upgrades, we generally go with 60% towards technical and 40% pricing. So I think you kind of get a gist of where we're going with this, but basically the concept of best value is that you aren't necessarily, the low bidder doesn't necessarily get the job. Most times they do, but not always. We've had situations where the second low, or even, I don't think the third low, but the second low can get the project, and that has fleshed out that way. This is an example. I'm not going to go through it in great detail. This is a project that was awarded yesterday. We basically had two teams. Here are their price bids and their technical proposal scores. So the values are high, and that's because of the formula, but essentially the best value was the second team in this situation. We have to also consider that we have an engineer's estimate, probable cost, and by design, MDT can award up a project without too many complications up to 25% over the engineer's estimate. So in this case, the best value team had a bid of 16.5 million. They were lower than the engineer's escalated engineer's estimate, or the 25% over engineer's estimate. So basically this one went to commission yesterday and was awarded. So we're moving forward now with that team. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is our scoring criteria. Essentially, we go to great depth. We have scoring members here. We have contractors across the top, and we actually provide values. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but it has to be extremely transparent, because we could, at any time, we could be challenged by a contractor or by Montana Contractors Association or ACC, American Council of Engineering Companies. You know, they would ask, or just the general public, a legislator could say, hey, are you guys scoring these fairly? And the response here is that yes, we have best practices consistent with basically the nation in being able to support our recommendation for award. So I'm kind of moving fast. I know there's a lot of information here, but I'll talk a little bit about the future of alternative contracting. We'll continue to use design build. It's served us very, very well. Highway reconstruction projects, we've included recently right-of-way and utilities, which has actually complicated the projects considerably. But the types of projects we're getting are more urban reconstructs. Rest area program will continue to use that. Expedited projects, both projects that are funding, that have funding constraints, meaning that we have to spend the money or obligate the money in a fiscal year, kind of a use it or lose it situation, and that design build actually serves very well to do that. ADA upgrades, it's a good way and a quick way to deliver projects. Bridge bundling reconstruction projects, we have over 400 bridges in eastern Montana that need to be reconstructed. They've been in operation since the 30s and the 40s, so they've gone well past their design life. Projects, like I say, shovel-ready projects, something that we need to get out quickly. And I mentioned earlier, CMGC and Progressive Design Build, we're hoping to get that implemented in the 2023 legislature. Hopefully within a month we'll have that. We'll know whether or not we got it. A little bit about the risks and benefits. Again, this is something you may or not be interested in, but it's highly important to us. But under design build, we pass on a lot of the risk to the contractor. So there's two things we need to consider. Number one is we do the best job we can as the highway department to give you all of the parameters, as much information as we possibly can, so that everybody's bidding apples and apples. However, the contractor, by reason of how the contracts are set up, they are assuming a considerable amount of risk. And so if they're smart, they're pricing the risk. And I'd rather price the risk and lose the project than not price the risk, get the project and lose money. I mean, I'm sure all contractors feel the same way. Buying a project is not worth it. CMGC, it's a shared risk, and extensive risk mitigation. We go to great deal of trouble to try to identify risk up front, and overall the risk is greatly reduced through CMGC. And the same thing with Progressive. We anticipate that those two programs will be able to help us to try to reduce risk and the costs associated with that. This is a standard, this is something that just about any design build or alternative contracting agency is aware of, but basically under design bid build, MDT owns the risk because MDT has prepared the project, whether it's internally or through consultants. We hand it to the contractor. The contractor basically carries less risk and has more potential for change order recovery in design bid build. Under Progressive and CMGC, we basically share the risk, but overall the total risk is reduced. And then converse to design build, or to design bid build, the contractor carries most of the risk, if not all. Although MDT still has a dog in the fight, and we still have some risk involved there. So benefits of design build, speed of delivery. This happens to be the Beartooth Highway back in 2002. When we had 12 slides that basically closed it down completely, reduced project cost and early price certainty, encourages design innovations. This is Foy's Lake up in Kalispell. A concept we didn't even think about was a dog bone interchange, and it seems to be working pretty good, but it was something that the contractor came up with who won the job. We talked about contractor constructability focus. By having the contractors involved in the alternative delivery program, we gain a lot of benefit from you guys and your primes in how to approach a project. Risk assigned to contractor. Kind of go through some slides. Again, these are just to give you an idea. Design bid build, generally speaking, takes upwards to get to design, final design can take anywhere from 4 to 6 years, whereas construction manager, general contractor, and progressive design build can also takes less time to develop. And under design build, we basically we knock out about 2 to 4 years of the design time. We go to construction. In some cases, we've been after award of the contract, we've been in construction within a month of award. So it moves extremely fast. Cost certainty is something we worry about. In the case of design bid build, cost certainty doesn't happen until 2 or 3 seasons out. So price escalation, we stand a better chance of actually spending more money on design bid build due to price escalation. CMGC and progressive design build, we know quicker. And under design build, we know immediately what that price is, price certainty, after selection of the design build firm. This is just a quick slide to talk. Some folks believe that, design build is difficult or is problematic in regards to delays, but what we're finding is that projects are there's less delay in design build than design bid build, and even less in CMGC and progressive design build. And this came from University of Colorado back in 2016, but it shows that design build is a viable option, and it can be delivered as quickly as any other method we have available. The delays are reduced as a result of contractor and subs participation in the design. And what that means is basically when you're involved in the design, you are able to help us identify where is our potential project delays at. Is it in material procurement? Is it in seasonal restrictions? But again, having you there at the table helps us out quite a bit. The next couple of slides, basically, I've mentioned that we award the projects on a lump sum. And once we have that lump sum, then we require the contractor to provide what's called a schedule of values. Phase one happens to be the engineering phase or the design phase. And what we do is the contractor has, in this case, they have $573,000 in the design. And we break that up. We use lump sum, but we basically break it up into a unit price by lump sum so that as these projects are, as the work is getting completed, the contractor sits down with the construction manager, the district project manager, and they say, we're done, we're 100% done with the site civil, and our erosion control done is 50% complete. And then they agree to an amount for that pay period. Under SOV2 or Schedule of Values 2, this is after construction has been awarded, all the permits are obtained, and release for construction has been allowed. The contractor then goes to work. Some cases we have Q&A issues, quality assurance, quality control, where there's an incentive and a deduct, and performance requirements. And those we might have a quantity, and many will have lump sum. We get away with a lot more, or it's more variable in design build than you would find in a design bid build arena, where you might have unit prices for everything. And so in this case, you know, as long as this project gets completed, the contractor could be under their estimated quantity or over their estimated quantity. But the fact remains is that we only award and we only pay for that total lump sum value that was submitted with the best value. So that was kind of a quick summary of our design build and our alternative delivery program. I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Megan. I hope I didn't ramble too badly. I really want to connect with the folks and let them know, you know, find out what drives you, what interests you guys. So I'll turn it over to you, Megan.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, John. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand. And while I'm giving you a few minutes to do that, I did receive one question in the chat, which is, how do DBE goals fit into these different project delivery methods? And I'm probably the one to answer that question. So I'll answer that for a while. So feel free to be typing up your questions in the chat as you have them. So to answer that question, right now in Montana, we're what we call race neutral. So we don't set project specific goals. And that's true on our design bid build projects as well as our design build project. But we do set what we call aspirational goals on a project level. And that is to inform the consultants and the prime contractors of what we think that they should be able to achieve on a project level. And of course, we are required to set an overall DBE goal. Our DBE goal currently in Montana is 6.5%. So we are trying to do a lot of race neutral things to increase DBE participation, but we don't have those mandatory project specific goals. And I see with that Santosh has his hand raised. So I will let Santosh ask his question.
Hey, John, great presentation. Thank you, Megan, for letting me ask a question. Great presentation, John. Quick question, John. As far as the decision-making to go design build versus GCCM, et cetera, can you share, I mean, is there a formal process within MDT to do that? Is there a flow chart? I did hear that, you know, mostly complicated projects could design build, maybe bridge projects, but can you share a little bit more insight on that, John?
Looks like I was muted. Yes, I can. So we do have a process. We have we look at 6 criteria. So when a construction or a funding manager, let's say it's traffic, comes to us and says, I want to deliver this project design build, they have pre-screened it and said, I have to spend money quickly, or this project is challenging and we think we can get more out of with a contractor's assistance as opposed to our normal business of just letting engineers do their thing. So we look at the 6 criteria that I'd mentioned earlier: innovation, cost, schedule, complexity of coordination, risk. And we look at that, and we have we use a kind of a 1 to 5 price or rating. So so we compare design build to design bid build. Those are because design build is our only current program. Then what we do is we take a look and say, okay, if it's a design build project, how can we manage risk better? Or let's use schedule, for instance. I can deliver a project probably 4 years quicker with 3 to 4 years faster with design build. So design build automatically, based on that criteria, is probably going to come out on top. And again, we want to be careful because not every project is going to fit the design build mold. I mean, some projects we just don't want to take a chance on that, on paying for the risk, because again, you're going to pay for the risk somehow. And contractors are going to put risk in their proposals. So yes, there is a formal process. We actually tally up the scores. And then at the end, we basically say, is this something that, I mean, does everybody in agreement? This design build might have 29 points and design bid build 15. So it's pretty clear that design build is going to be the best candidate. Now, if we have a process that, let's say we come up with a project and not really a good fit for design build may score less, or it may score close, in which case then it appears that either way either method would work. And so at that point, then we have to make a decision. And usually the projects that we've looked at have been pretty heavily weighted towards design build, just because they've been pre-screened and they meet some of the minimum goals of got to be delivered fast, and so or will have great value in having a contractor assist us. So that was a long answer to your question, and I can share that with you if you're interested. But
that would be great, John. And
yeah.
if I can ask a follow-up on that, John, Megan, if that's okay, please. So you mentioned progressive design build. Is there a interest to do more progressive design build?
Oh yeah, very much so. So we sit on a peer exchange or with 26 other states, and all of these states have alternative delivery. Progressive design build is fairly new. I don't think it's been out long, maybe 5 years at the most, but it's gaining popularity because of numerous reasons. But yes, our department is convinced that progressive design build is a good way to deliver our projects. Progressive is best suited for kind of more medium to high complexity projects, whereas CMGC is a more formalized process, a little longer delivery. I could see a project like something on the reservation, a 93 project that, a $50 to $70 million project, that because we're working with the tribe, because we're working with huge environmental issues, we want to take it slow and easy. CMGC fits that mold very well, but it also gives us the ability to have the contractor at the table and the subs at the table. So, but yeah, I envision that right now, like I say, about 100%, and other than the pilot program, are being delivered design build. We anticipate probably half of our future projects could go progressive. We have a learning curve, and we have to learn. We basically, once we get it, we need to come up with a guidance document. We need to pick our pilot or our beta or alpha projects, or beta test projects, and we'll move forward with those. So anyway, do you know much about it? Do you know much about progressive or?
Yes, we've done a few. So yes.
Let me ask you, do you like it?
I mean, this is getting into some of the more, I guess I'm going to say, trying conversation. I mean, I'm a designer by choice. I'm an engineer,
Okay.
And I'd say from a design build standpoint, our experience is, the engineer gets a little commoditized commercially, and it's an uncomfortable place to be. And
Yeah.
Progressive, offers a little bit of relief to that, and the owner has more of a direct relationship, or at least a channel to the engineer to influence things and outcomes.
Well, I think so. What we're hearing nationally is that contractors they're not as enamored at design build as they used to be. They're
Mhm.
realizing that they're losing money, and there's just too much risk. Again, it all comes back to risk. And you as an engineer know that, if you give your price to your contractor, you're kind of stuck with it. And that project could potentially escalate, and you have no recourse to get reimbursed for the extra effort.
Right.
So yeah,
Yep.
then that's where CMGC and Progressive, I think, allow you to get paid for every hour that you design.
Yeah. But I think the pre-construction services in CMGC is maybe a little bit of a hardship for the contractor because their best people are tied up.
True. Yeah, there's a lot more effort goes into from us in design build and or CMGC and Progressive. So
Yep. Thank you, John.
well, thank you. Thanks for your comment.
Great. Yeah, thank you, John.
All right, any other questions? I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but this is your last chance if you have questions to get them answered here. And if you think of questions later, of course, feel free to get in touch with us. We're always happy to help our small businesses and get their questions answered. So I guess with that, we will get ready to sign off, and I'll just say thanks everyone for joining us today. And John, unless you have any other questions or comments, I think we can say goodbye. Good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks.